Hello and welcome to Security Update. Tonight is Friday, of course, you all know that. And here at Security Update, we bring you news and discussion about what is going on in many regions of Africa. So we do not actually cover one region. From the past programs, we have covered Cameroon, we have covered Ivory Coast, and now we have also done a series on Ethiopia and on the ongoing war between the Ethiopian government forces and TPLF. So tonight, we have assembled a group of experts. I will call them experts. And David Otto will go through them, but before then, let me just do a mini introduction. David Otto is our host, and is from Step In, Step Out. And Martin Plaut is a seasoned journalist. He knows everything that is inside. He knows everything about Africa, inside out. And then we have Professor Mammo Muchie. He's based in South Africa. In fact, as we speak now, he's actually in South Africa. And we have got Brother Zelealem Tessema. He's a chairman, he's a co-chairman of Ethiopian Association here in the UK. So, David, I just want you to give a brief introduction of what our viewers are going to expect. Carol?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Joseph Otieni. Thank you to viewers of Africa Security Update. Again, we bring you one of our programs which we promised to continuously touch on. And today we have a wonderful, experts on board here who will be talking about issues in Ethiopia. As Mr. Joseph said, this is a program which it's a weekly security update, and we have selected this topic based on the request that you, the audience, have made. We have selected the respective experts, to give you the best of the current situation that is ongoing. So let me give you a bit of a very sketchy history, and our experts will dig deep right into what has been going on. In 2019, we had, of course, the current global pandemic, which is COVID-19. That, of course, led to the government of Ethiopia postponing the elections on the basis of the pandemic and the spread within Ethiopia. And then on the, I think that was November the 4th, there was the declaration of war by the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, the government, and the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed against the people of the Tigray region. This war was directly against the TPLF, which is the Tigray People's Liberation Forces. So today we will be talking about not just the humanitarian crisis, but looking forward on the way that can bring an end to this crisis. We have seen the devastating humanitarian consequence. We have seen many parties getting involved, Eritrea, Sudan, and that is driving the crisis to a boiling point. Now, the Ethiopian government had wished that this is going to be a very short war. Unfortunately, we know how these things, always end up. They will drag on for a very long time, and it is the ordinary citizens that will have the greatest impact. So let me introduce again my guest. Today we have Professor Mammo Muchie, who is a researcher from South Africa. We also have Zelealem Tessema, who is chairman of the Ethiopian Association in the UK. And then our very own Martin Plaut, who is a former BBC World editor and a staunch researcher in South of Africa, also in East Africa. I think, I've seen him, his write-ups, are coming up in several places in Africa. So, gentlemen, welcome to Africa Security Update. Let me begin with you, Professor Mammo Muchie. what is the situation now? Since we know that the prime minister promised that this is going to be a very quick war, but it does appear as if this is going on. I mean, if Professor is not there, can I start with Zelealem Tessema? If you can, take the lead on that in terms of where we are now with the crisis. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, David. Well, to begin with a slight correction in terms of the way you introduced me, I'm not claiming to be an expert here. I'm a private citizen and a concerned citizen about what's happening back home or in my sort of country of origin. Hence, I've got a vested interest in it. That's why I'm here.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay, the professor is back. Do you want me to continue?
I want you to go ahead. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Right. Okay. I mean, looking at the poster of the program, so we're going to talk. I mean, to start with, as we all know, this is a tragic situation that's happening in Ethiopia and specifically in Tigray at the moment. It's something that's neither Ethiopia or the people in Tigray would have wished for. So hence, all my sort of heart goes out to the people who are impacted by this crisis. And as we all know, sort of the first casualty in any conflict is really truth. So I think there are very polarized views about what's the conflict in Tigray, and probably the truth is somewhere in the middle. So as to what's happening there, I think I would rather try to start from what is the origin? How did we get here in the first place? Is really the question for me. Yes, as much as we have to deal with what's happening on the ground at the moment, but how did we get here would lead us into how we're going to solve this matter. So how we got here, as you know, or for those who don't know, or your audiences, is really, it is about the power struggle, or well, as in between the federal state and the regional state, or the imbalance that has been historically there in Ethiopia. And to make matters worse, the TPLF, who has been the vanguard of the ruling party in Ethiopia, when they were toppled or when they were removed from power in 2018, they went into their base and increasingly have been defying the federal authority. And this defiance got to the extent of not only claiming to be like a de facto state, that they conducted their own election, and then they said that we're an kind of we rule ourselves. But things went beyond that. So the last trigger for this conflict is the TPLF decided to overrun the Northern Command, which has been stationed then for the last 20 years, looking after the sovereignty of Ethiopia against Eritrea. So, as the government of Ethiopia has basically put it, and probably I agree to that, is no nation, okay, would be sitting and watching when its national defense is overrun. Hence, this conflict has started. And probably, in my view, this is a fatal miscalculation on the part of the TPLF. It is something that they should have bent backwards in terms of resolving this imbalance, however much grievances that they might have, or disgruntled about the change, or the Abiy government in the center has become, I don't know, unitary or favors that rather than the federalism. They should have bent backwards. I know about how many missions have went to Tigray to resolve these matters peacefully, but well, all the events sort of fallen on deaf ears, and hence we are where we are now. So that's the origin.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Tessema, because we've got to make sure that everybody has 2 minutes at least to give their views in terms of the introduction of this program, which you've done very well. You talked about the defiance of the TPLF against the Ethiopian government. Martin, let me come to you before I get to Professor Mammo. Is that how you see it, Martin, from the perspective of a defiance by the TPLF as put by Mr. Zelealem?
Well, let me make it clear that I don't speak on behalf of the Tigrayans or the TPLF. I'm a researcher. I say what I see, the story as I see fit. And there's one thing I would agree with him about truth being the first casualty. But if you want to ask why that is the case, you must also ask yourself why the Ethiopian authorities have put a steel wall around Tigray and are not allowing people, either Ethiopian journalists or international journalists, to go and report on the story. So if anybody is complaining about the truth, it should be not the Ethiopian government, it is the media who are not being allowed to do their job. But I would start, if we're going to go back to the origins. First of all, of course, I think that the Tigrayans made some mistakes. I mean, let's be clear about this. I mean, they were difficult to deal with, and I fully accept that. But we have to look at this with a bit more knowledge about what's going on. And if you go back to 2018, when the deal was done, which ended the relationship, sorry, not 2018, when the border dispute between Ethiopia and Eritrea was resolved, and thank goodness it was resolved, and peace was finally declared. But if you go back to what actually happened at that time, a relationship was formed between President Isaias of Eritrea and Prime Minister Abiy, which then later developed into one which included the president of Somalia, Farmajo. And they held a number of meetings. And if you look at those meetings and the way that they developed, of course, they never have a proper press conference afterwards. They never revealed to the people of any of their countries what they really discussed. But let's leave that on one side. If you look at what actually happened, it is clear that they had a plan which they gradually developed. And that plan came to fruition on the 4th of November. And the plan was to attack the TPLF, to remove them as an obstacle. President Isaias has loathed the Tigrayans for years. And Prime Minister Abiy, clearly they were the people that were blocking his road to complete control of Ethiopia. The Somalis were brought in because they were useful. So you now have a situation where you have an international war in Ethiopia, and that is what we have to acknowledge. You have the Tigrayans facing forces from the north, which are the Eritrean forces, plus the Somalis. You have the Amhara, plus the Ethiopian federal force who are attacking from the south and from the east. And you have, in essence, a war that is a regional war in the Horn of Africa. And until one accepts that position, and it has been acknowledged, for example, today, much to the fury of the Eritreans, by the United States publicly. That is what's going on. When you see it in that perspective, it's rather different.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let me come to Professor Mammo. You've heard the introduction of Zelealem. You've heard the position of Martin Plaut, and we've clearly made it clear that there is no representation here. Nobody is representing either the Ethiopian government or the Tigray region. What we want to get our audience to understand is the situation that got us where we are. What is your take, Professor? I think the professor has some technical issues. Let me come back to you, Zelealem, on this issue. Now, you've talked about the history of this crisis from your perspective. I don't know. Professor, are you there?
Yes, I'm there, but sorry, it's been breaking. So I'm now on my mobile phone. Okay,
Okay,
let me
that's
say
great.
something.
Yes, we can
So
hear
your
you very
question
well.
is,
Yes,
okay,
can you give us your perspective in terms of how
yes.
you see
Can I?
the origin of
Hello?
the crisis? Yes.
Can you hear
Go
me?
ahead, sir. Yes, we can hear you, Professor. Professor, can you hear us? I think the professor is breaking. Professor, are you there? Yes, Professor. Yes, I think Professor cannot hear us. I wish he could.
I'm sorry, our network is very bad.
Okay. Yes, can you hear me now, Professor? Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, you can hear.
Go ahead. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
You've lost him.
Okay. Unfortunately, we've lost Professor Mammo again. Let me come back to you, Zelealem. Sorry for that. Continuous interruption, viewers. Technology is 50-50 at times. Hopefully we'll get 100% from our two panelists here. Zelealem, let me come back to you. You talked about the defiance of the TPLF, to the Ethiopian government. Now, what do you see as the way forward? Martin Plaut has made it very clear, and I understand that, as you may, that this is not just a crisis that involves the Ethiopian government and the TPLF. We've got Eritrea very much involved in the mix. Sudan is also involved. Martin has talked about the involvement of the Amharas and the Somalis. This is now a dirty war, isn't it? And do you see this ending the way that the government thought it would? Over to you.
Thank you, David. Well, to begin with, I take issues when you say the involvement of the Amharas. What does that mean? The Amharas are Ethiopians, okay?
Yes, go ahead.
This is one big region in the country. Yes, to start with, should there have been, okay, special forces within different regions? That's not a question for me. That's for the Ethiopian constitution, for the Ethiopian government to deal with. But Tigray People Liberation Front or the Tigray administrative region had to the tune of about 200,000 special forces, right? And they are considered to be the battle hardened, like Alexander the Great's army, who are going to be sort of like walking through this war. That's how it was presented. But that's not what transpired. The other issue that I've got with Martin probably is, not personally, to his opinion, right, is in terms of relationship between Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Somalia. That would have come to nothing if the TPLF has played their cards right in terms of saving their region and saving their people. Okay, we would have not got here, right? They would have had no one to blame. I am not saying hereafter we should be simply blaming the TPLF and do nothing about it. The Ethiopian government and the international community have to do all they can in their power in terms of rehabilitating, allowing humanitarian aid, okay, and any other injustice and atrocities that are being committed in that land, okay. Probably Martin doesn't want to talk about what has happened in Maikadra, right? That is Srebrenica of Ethiopia, right? If it was the West, probably, yeah, he would have called for the United Nations mission to enter and investigate in Maikadra, right? So, in my view, yeah, war is a nasty thing, right? Undesirable things do happen, but we need to move forward for the sake of the people who are inflicted on. And humanitarian aids need to go. And I understand that corridors are being opened from Sudan to Mekelle, right? 2.5 million people, aid money, sort of humanitarian aid is going through or going. Yes, nothing. I mean, people might be starving. Yes, because this is a region which in the best of times relies on food aid. Okay, if there are disruptions of flow of food, yeah, those things do happen, but it needs to be addressed, and we need to do that. And other medical supply resettlements of people who has been displaced needs to happen. We have heard
Yes,
about.
yes, I get you, Mr.
I'm
Zelealem.
back.
Sorry to interrupt you. Let me also get Professor, because he's in. Let's just have his voice. I'll come back to you, Mr. Zelealem. Professor, can you jump in, please?
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I'm so sorry about the network.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Just to say, I'm so happy to see Martin Plaut, because he was with me. He was a BBC reporter, and he used to interview me. He used to even invite me to his house. Everything. It was very nice to me. I must say to him that he should really now understand what I did at that time. You remember in the interview, I said we protested when on May 27, when the Cohen and all the others, the British and the Americans together, they invited the TPLF, the EPLF, and the Derg Prime Minister. They invited them. Then what did they do? They made a decision to create a transitional government for the TPLF. And on the 28th, Isaias declared a provisional government in on the BBC. And I was invited there. I think Martin was one of the people who got me invited. And I was amazed. We protested. We did not want a division of Ethiopia. The politics that was imposed on Ethiopia is the divide and rule politics that has made Africa neo-colonial and not post-colonial. So of all places, Ethiopia suffered. Why? They created division between Eritrea and Ethiopia. I remember a year later, Martin Plaut called me and asked me, last year you said there will be war between Eritrea and Ethiopia. When we asked you on the BBC, what's your position now? I remember when I told him, last year I was emotional, but now I'm rational. I can give you many reasons why even these two forces, EPLF and TPLF, will not unite. What we are having is a continuous battle of these forces, these politicians, who have the mentality, the colonized mentality, the inferiorized mentality. This is our biggest problem in Africa. The ethnic politics is the worst. Never should have happened in Ethiopia, ever. So these forces that have done, these politicians, these political parties that are based on ethnicity, not just the Tigrayans or Amara or Oromo or anybody, it shouldn't. Look what's happening now. You are talking about only the suffering of the Tigrayan people. None of us want any Africans, any people to suffer. They should not be in this situation. But you know how many more people are in a place called Metekel? I don't know, over how many thousands? Over I don't know how, I cannot tell you the number. Over 100,000 people are displaced, being killed. Many things are happening. So people talk more when there is all this major thing happening against the entire people are suffering, and even the Christians, Orthodox Christians, are suffering. What we hear is only on the TPLF side. That is the reason is because over the last 27 years, the TPLF made links with Europe and America. And why would Europe, all right, stop giving aid to Ethiopia because of this? No, it's just wrong. It's what they are doing. Who is suffering? The people of Ethiopia. It's not the government. So what we are having now is a serious challenge. And this war should not have happened. Another very important point I want to tell you. When they had what they called the emergency, there was this thing called command post and emergency. When that happened, I wrote a commentary saying, there should be a peaceful transition. I say the best gift that the TPLF could give to Ethiopia is a peaceful transition. What we face in Africa in the leadership crisis is that we don't know how to transfer power from one to the other. Look what happened in Uganda and all these places, in Cameroon, everywhere. Our leaders stay for many, many years. They don't know how to get out. They know how to get in, but they don't know how to get out. And we say, you have been there for nearly 30 years. The best gift you could give to Ethiopia is a proper, peaceful transition. And I appeal to you, I said. I even made it an appeal. And look what happened. Look what happened now. Look, what did they do? The government of Ethiopia gave them a budget before they went, before Debretsion declared war on the second day. On that night, he got money, 6 billion birr was given. I don't think the Ethiopian government, I think Dr. Abiy, they were not, they did not expect war to happen. Then what happened? All these strange things happened. The military who were supposed to support Tigray being attacked, killed. Many strange things happened. Then what did they do? All these things that my brothers mentioned, all the election, all these things that have happened. Instead of learning how to agree, even if you disagree, finding a way to re-agree, what did they do? Fight, fight, fight. And then a fight to a situation where now, unfortunately, people die. I must tell you that we were trying to found the Adwa Pan-African University. I thought by the year 125th anniversary now, which is now celebrating it globally. I hope you also could help us join us. I was thinking that the Adwa Pan-African University will be there. Can I mention to you, when I was and we celebrated Adwa victory also at that time, about 3 years ago, we had the meeting. There, Siyu Masfin was there, and now he's passed. I'm really sad, honestly. And all the leaders were there, and we debated. I mean, we may not have in the discussion, we're debating and arguing, but the most important thing is, why should they be in a situation where the conflict could go to a point when we're all advising them that the best thing they could give even for us to be the example for Africa is to create a peaceful transition? Why do they go in this direction? I must say to you
Prof,
that whatever you say
Professor,
about... Yes.
Yeah, Professor,
Yes.
I'll get back to you because I wanted you to catch up with the time that you lost, and I'm really grateful that you've touched on very many key points. Let me let Martin come in here and talk about now the situation is really complex, and I'll get back to you, Mr. Zelealem, after that. Martin, the situation is quite complex. I mean, you've heard the views of your panelists. How do you see this going forward with this complexity? And do you see any prospect for some kind of a peaceful agreement between, whether it's one or two parties or three or four parties? Because there even seems to be a disagreement about how many people are involved or how many parties are involved. Over to you, Martin.
Well, I think that there certainly was an opportunity to resolve this, and President of South Africa, held meetings with the President of Ethiopia, and they agreed that there would be African Union mediators sent to Addis Ababa to go to Tigray and to work with them and to produce a mediated settlement. And that was agreed. And then within a day, the Prime Minister Abiy said, no, we're never going to allow it. So African Union was sidelined. A great pity. It was an opportunity before this war got out of control to resolve the issue. Why Prime Minister Abiy did this, I have no idea. But it was a tragedy, and thousands of people have died. The appalling atrocities that are being committed against women, the attacks on mosques, the attacks on churches, the looting that has happened. I mean, the way that the Eritreans, whom I knew very well and, spent years working with, the way that they have behaved, their forces behave, is absolutely indescribably terrible. And we all know this. And, it's universally acknowledged now. The problem now is that we are in a situation which is almost irresolvable. The Tigrayans have done what they always said that they would do, which is that they withdrew from the cities, they've gone into the mountains, into the villages, into the hills, and they will fight from the countryside. They never believed in their previous wars in the previous war that ended in 1991. They did not believe in holding territory or holding cities. So they will attack the advancing armies of Eritrea, of Somalia, of the Amhara militia, who have also behaved appallingly badly. And I have no idea who was involved in the Maikandra atrocities. They were appalling, and I don't care who carried them out. They were appalling. The problem is this: they are now trapped in a guerrilla war, which could go on for months, if not years, and people will be sucked into this. The situation is catastrophic. The war began when the harvest was coming in, and there's no need for a corridor from Sudan. There's pre-positioned aid already in Ethiopia. All that you need to do is to allow corridors into Tigray. And I would urge, and the Ethiopian government to lift that steel wall, allow people to report from there freely, allow the aid to go in there, and half, if not 2/3 of the problem will be resolved. If it doesn't happen, we will have thousands of people dying, in almost like they did in 1984-85.
Thank you very much for that, Martin. Let me come back to you, Zelealem, because I think this is very important. But let me also make it very clear that what we're trying to do here is to pave the way for, we're not decision makers, but we're bringing out ideas that could be taken on board by either side. We're not here to support one side or another. We all looking for the interests of Ethiopia, for the interests of Africa. Remember that Ethiopia is the second most populated country in Africa, and this is the pride of Africa. So whatever discussions we are having here, let us look forward towards a solution. Now, before I get to you, Zelealem, Mr. Joseph wants to chip in a question or have a word. Go ahead, Mr. Joseph.
Okay, I'm actually going to just to read one text from the viewer here. He's saying, Mr. Martin, Professor Mammo, and Mr. Zelealem, you are all honest academics, but what he's suggesting is that it is now left to academics actually to campaign to end this misery in Ethiopia. But also, let me add one thing. Yesterday, I saw something that really surprised me a lot. Professor Mammo mentioned that what happened in Uganda. Now, yesterday, I saw a picture of this young man, Kyagulanyi, with a European, delegation at his house. Now, my thought was that, how is that possible? It is in 2021. We are still actually running to the people who colonized us, and they have left us alone. Why can't we solve these problems ourselves? Say, for example, we have got a man like Paul Kagame, right? Okay, I know some people might say, yeah, the man has got a problem. But look, in that region, you know what they have gone through. This is, I think, this is the man that can actually sit down, maybe not with Abiy, because he's not going to listen. Martin has already mentioned that they had already made agreements or tentatively agreements for AU to mediate, but it looks like we do not have confidence in ourselves. So now you academics, see, this is Stefanos Abebe saying it is really left to academics to campaign and come up with solutions. That's maybe, do you have anything that you can add on to that?
I think you're perfectly right. Yeah, Mr.
Yeah.
Joseph, you're perfectly right. And thank you for the viewer's opinion. And this is exactly what I was saying. Mr. Zelealem, what is the way forward? I mean, three of you gentlemen are, very brilliant researchers and, people with knowledge and experience of the region and Africa in general. What is the way forward? Let's keep out the blame game of, why did the chicken cross the road or who did what? I know that is important in the solution, but what is the way forward, Mr. Zelealem, so people can really, take on board these solutions?
Right. Well, there are short-term problems and there are long-term problems, okay, to this. The short-term problems are, like I said, the problem of humanitarian aid, the problem of stability and peace, within Tigray. And then after that is probably about reconfiguration of sort of the power between regional and sort of federal government, or the distribution of power. All of that could be looked at a later stage. But now we need to address the immediate things. There are about 2.5 million people who are internally or outside displaced as the result of this conflict. It's about bringing them back home. For the people who hasn't got basic services, about provision of basic services, right? Let's make a point here that 60% of humanitarian aid is, I understand that the Ethiopian government is underwriting that or doing all its best from Ethiopian people, Ethiopian budget, that's happening. The rest of the world, as much as it's helping, OCHA are on the ground, right? Save the Children are there, right? The Médecins Sans Frontières are there. According to the news brief that I heard, I read this morning, right? Things are a lot encouraging, right? Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab has gone as far as Gondar to have a look at the humanitarian aid supplies that are being and the effort that has been done. And he has come back and reported, if you see his tweet, that he's encouraged with what he has seen. Is that enough? No, it isn't. Okay. In terms of peace within Tigray, right? The TPLF, as they are leaving, what did they do? They released 10,000 criminals, actual criminals. No, these are not political people. Criminals out of jail. These are people who have been criminal of killing people, murder, rape, and all of that. Okay? And we hear a lot of probably rape and all indecent things that are happening, which is not very alien to Ethiopian culture in Tigray region. And partly we mustn't forget that these all need to be brought under control. At the moment, whether we like it or not, there is an interim government that has been sort of looking after, care of in Tigray. We may not like it. Those people are simply interim. They can people can constitute their own regional government when the time is right. But now let us address the immediate issues and then come back and sit down. This is the decision for the people of Tigray and the people of Ethiopia, right? We may support from outside. We make noises for those who haven't got the voices. But at the end of the day, the decision is there. And the other thing we must remember is the geopolitical of Ethiopia and the surrounding area is not 1984. Or is it not? It's not 1991. Okay? I don't think they will do themselves or anybody else justice by going into rabbit holes or foxholes as things has happened in 1991. Things are totally different. I'm hoping that they need to come to their senses, everybody, the government, the regional government, and the people who are the TPLF supporters or who have left, the remaining people. They need to think about, what did we do to our people? How do we end this? And how do we bring normality to Tigray and then to Ethiopia?
Thank you very much, Zelealem. Professor, how do we bring normality? We know that in order for humanitarian access to go into Tigray, we need access into that region. At the moment, that is not the case. You know, even when you do have access to humanitarian aid, in most cases, it prolongs the war. This is my experience, and what we are not saying, we're not saying that people don't need humanitarian assistance, but remember that humanitarian assistance also acts as an incentive to carry on fighting. Now, how do you bring back both sides to their senses, Professor?
In 84, 85, and the 1974 famine, I remember saying, how many percentage of the Ethiopian population is under famine? 90% was not under famine. 10% was under famine. How come the 90% of the people in Ethiopia raise all what they need to do and help their own people? They don't need outside support. Outside support always has problem. Sincerely, when they try to support you, they also create problems for you because they have their own agenda, their own self-interest. Every country is self-driven, self-interested, and is not genuinely interested. Especially Ethiopia is a target. Ethiopia is the only African country that has been like Haiti in the Caribbean. Ethiopia is an independent country, and always it's a target, sincerely. So my advice to all the Ethiopians, particularly to my brothers and sisters in Tigray, I am with you. We are raising funds for them here. I was outside. Sincerely, we are in America, my friends, Dula and others. They are all raising, trying to send money to try to support to the Tigrayans. We're doing it, all of us. So all I'm suggesting to you is that first and foremost, all the Ethiopians must learn to support each other. And when the Tigrayans are suffering, we should not allow any Tigrayan to suffer. Better that I suffer than seeing any of them suffer. That is should be our belief. And I think and I think in terms of the population's values, they are like our values are very good, but it's simply the politics. The politics is too dirty. This politics must change. Let me tell you the politics. The politics, the TPLF imposed, the EPLF, TPLF, the OLF, all this imposed on Ethiopia is what is dangerous. It's very much the politics that Mussolini imposed on Ethiopia. Mussolini was a guy called Baron Roman Parachoska. He wrote a book called Abyssinia, the Powder Barrel. He said, unless you divide, unless you attack the imperial system in Ethiopia, unless you attack the Orthodox Church, and unless you attack the Amhara people, not only will they colonize, they will colonize us in even Italy. All of Europe will be colonized. They are dangerous. We must divide them. How do we divide them? We create what they call this ethnic division on language. They created that. How many did Mussolini create? 7. How many did the TPLF create? 9. Now that system hasn't changed. It must be abolished. If it's not abolished, I'm sincerely telling you, humanitarian crisis will be all over the region. I'm sincerely telling you, it's dangerous. We must get out of that. Africa is the richest continent on this planet. We have everything. Why should our people be poor? Why should we be always in the conflict? We should get out of this. We don't know how to trust each other, work with each other. The colonialists came and divided us. They come, they give you some money to fight me. You prefer the money than me. Look what happened to Thomas Sankara. Look what happened, Lumumba. All of our good leaders, they die early. Why?
Okay, Professor.
Speaking, I'm simply telling you, there is a lot of change that has to be done. And I hope this new government is able to do it and then bring also the Tigrayan people. The Tigrayan people are the victims of the TPLF too. Oh, I'm sincerely telling you, it's not the politicians are a problem. The people are innocent, mostly. They may be misguided sometimes. But now we should support, of course, We don't want any Tigrayan people to die.
Yeah.
We don't want any Amhara people to die. All of them, Oromo people, all of them, they should be united. They should be helping each other, support each other. We should also from outside do it. We shouldn't beg. Begging is not good. My father used to tell me, give, never take. I think we should all be doing like that. And I'm sincerely advising you to join us and let's support them. Let's not worry on all these non-profit organizations and all these organizations. They can come later if they want to, but they look what they are doing now. They're spreading huge media attacking Ethiopia. Sincerely, I'm scared about what I read.
Yeah.
It's very, very scary. It's not good for Ethiopia, for Africa. We all are under attack because of them. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you, Professor. Let me come to you, Martin. You've talked very well about the role that the African Union has tried to play. They haven't succeeded so far. There are so many parties involved, both internal, external, regional, international. Martin, I mean, you've got experience. What do you think? Who is going to come in? The West has its own interests. Ethiopia has its interests. The regional parties have their interests. When will the interests of the ordinary people? What is the way forward, Martin? Your experience. Go ahead.
Well, let me say that it's always a pleasure to hear from Professor Mammo Muchie. One always learns so much from him. He is somebody of such deep wisdom. I think that we have to begin with reality. And the reality that we're in is that this is a war. And a great deal was revealed in a bit of audio that was actually leaked today. And I'll read you a very brief tweet that said about it. It said, a report that in secretly recorded audio, a cabinet meeting of the regional Tigray administration led by Dr. Mulu, cabinet members said that they administered almost only Mekele. The rest of Tigray is controlled by Amhara and Eritrean forces. That is a reality that is happening inside Tigray today. And I would issue this challenge to Mr. Zelealem. I would ask him this: if you want to see peace, would you here now on this show call for the Eritrean forces to leave Tigray? Would you do that? Because if that happened, I think that there would be a much better position for there to be peace between Ethiopians. Mr. Zelealem, I issue you that challenge.
Mr. Zelealem, go ahead.
Martin, I've heard your challenge. Okay, as much as I would like to say that, but I'm a little bit suspicious about what the objective of that is. If it's about Ethiopian government forces will not be able to control Tigray and TPLF army can come and then reclaim the territory in Tigray, if that's the intention, probably, first of all, I don't have any evidence of Tigray forces being there. I'm simply taken at face value, right? When you are in a war, depending on what powers that you have, it's up to you where you can go and seek help and advice, okay? If Ethiopia have chosen to get Eritrea's help, and if Eritrea is obliged to give it support, right? That's the business between Ethiopia and the Eritrean government. But what I would probably agree with you is, if Eritrean forces are in Tigray and they are doing what they are not supposed to be doing, as in do atrocious things to the people of Tigray, I would oppose that 100%, whether they are Eritrean or whether it's the Ethiopian Defense Forces. Nobody should be doing that to any, especially to your own citizen, okay? On that grounds, yes.
Thank you, Martin, go ahead.
Well, I would just say this, it was really interesting. There was a remark by a leading Ethiopian general who said that the presence of Eritrean forces on Ethiopian soil was painful to him. And I cannot understand how the Ethiopian army, knowing what's going on, they know what's happening, is standing by while their sisters are being raped, while their churches are being destroyed. You talk about the terrible atrocity that happened at the beginning of the war. What about the atrocity that's happened in Aksum? Why do you not talk about that? These things must be halted, and they can only be halted when Ethiopians are left to deal with these issues by themselves. Why you have Eritrean forces, which everybody now believes are there? Why you are allowing tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Eritreans to wander across your country is extraordinary to me. Why is your army not standing up to them?
I think,
Well,
Martin, thank you for that.
If I can briefly come back, David. I mean, we
Yes,
all
go
know
ahead.
Tigray is a place of like opaque environment, sort of information environment. But having said that, we need to get them. We need to take all the informations that we hear with a pinch of salt. Martin, you must know more than anybody else. There are a number of occasions where you have tweeted or you have provided informations that absolutely not to be true as well. So we need to be careful as to what information that we are using. I'm not saying there aren't any problems, right? Ideally,
Listen,
I would
I
rather not
completely
be
agree.
here, but I am sorry to say that I am going to be putting equally, if not more, the responsibility for this conflict on the doorsteps of TPLF. I'm sorry to say that.
I
I
completely
think,
agree with
yes,
you. May I just respond to that?
yes,
I
yes, go
completely
ahead,
agree
Martin.
with you. What we need is accurate information. Lift the steel wall around Tigray. Let the reporters, Ethiopian, Eritrean, and international, go and report on what's going on. Don't block the access to information.
I completely agree with you, Martin. Zelealem, what normally happens in these scenarios where there is very limited access to information, in a situation like this, you would have inaccurate information, you would have misinformation, you would have disinformation. And this is what nobody wants in a crisis of this nature, especially because we have an interest to see peace in the entire Ethiopia. It's unfortunate that information will be coming from people that may not necessarily have the full access, and you've got no choice as a state when you block the information space. You always have these situations. Everybody sometimes, or people want to give pass on information, but maybe the sources are not as accurate as they may think. But I think what the way forward is, Zelealem, is to focus on what steps can be taken next. Now, do you see the Ethiopian government opening access to Tigray as a possible solution, or as a complex problem? Do you think that would make any positive or negative difference? What do you think?
Absolutely. Not only I see that as a positive step, we are also pushing for that, okay? Right? To stop all this speculation about what's happened, what has not happened, okay? Some of them, well, which I would say most of them, in terms of especially what you see in the digital world, is, I would say, probably most of it would be wrong anyway. So not only I say yes, but we also push for Ethiopian government to open up Tigray. Well, probably it might be in phase
sorry,
or in
Zelealem, how
stage.
do you know it's wrong? How do you know it's wrong if you don't have access?
No, I mean, there are, well, as much, we've got, I have got access to people who are on the ground, okay, as to what sort of information are there.
Yeah, I understand that, but anybody can say that. I'm not saying that you don't have access, but the point that we're trying to make for the interest of everyone is that access should be given, because anybody can say, I got this information because I have people on the ground.
I
There is no
agree with you. I said absolutely, I agree with you. The Ethiopian government should do that, and we will be pushing too for that to happen. Yeah, how soon would that happen? In what stage would that happen? That is not sort of in my gift or control. Okay, Martin himself said, whether if you believe whatever has been tweeted or somebody has sent him, the head of the regional government, the interim government, said that only they control the surroundings of Mekelle. The rest is controlled by and so and so. So that says to you, so probably that most of it is like a security risk area. the Ethiopian government have to balance the risk to journalists and people who it allows to get there, yeah, with also the rationale for opening up and making this area accessible for the truth to come out. The truth may not be sort of palatable sometimes, but it needs to come out.
Yes, Zelealem, you're right. And let me give you my experience in this field, because I know a bit about this kind of warfare. First of all, when the government decides to shut down the internet access, definitely it means they have something to hide, unless they open access. So that puts the Ethiopian government at a disadvantage. The second point that has to be known is whatever information is pulled out of a region where there is no access, there is no way anybody can have an objective view as to whether that information is wrong or right, because the verification process cannot take place when there is limited access to a region. So that itself is a problem which I think, as you rightly said, I'm very happy that you're pushing towards that. The government of Ethiopia really needs to open access to this region, and then manage the information that is right and the information that is wrong. That is how you deal with propaganda. Now, Martin, let me come to you, because I think Professor Mammo Muchie is still not connected here. Because we're going to be rounding up, Martin. What do you see the future to be like? My take is that you fight a conventional warfare and then you move into an asymmetric warfare, which is the most dangerous part. You mentioned that the TPLF have promised to move towards the mountains, perhaps use the guerrilla style tactics. Isn't this, dragging this into a war of attrition, especially when, you have the UN missions, people are calling on the UN to come in. That, in my opinion, is the beginning of a long war. Is that how you see it, Martin?
In a word, yes.
Okay. Let me come to you, Zelealem. How do you see the conflict? I know you made it very clear that, again, I want to be very clear that we are not opposing each other here, but we're having different views, which is very important for the audience. Now, you said that the Ethiopian government is holding this territory. It's controlling the territory, and it's making sure that an interim government has been set up. Do you see this as a possible sustainable strategy, or do you think we still have to move towards that dialogue, which is always important?
Well, could this be a war of attrition, as you are saying? What I can say to you is it all depends probably what the West intends to do about this. Because, I mean, my view is, Martin, well, as much as sort of you like the country and you like the peace of that country, and considering sort of the leverage that you have, which probably I know with a little bit of distance, I think if you have got the ears of the people, I think you, as much as you are raising the issues that are happening in Tigray, but you need also to be telling the people of TPLF, guys, look, you need to come to some kind of acceptance where you are and try to get some settlement of peace for the sake of the people of Tigray. That's what we ought to be saying. But would this be ongoing for an attrition? It all depends on how the dynamic would be playing out there. It could be between Ethiopia and Sudan. It could be between Ethiopia and Eritrea. I haven't got a marble to say that, okay, of what's happening. But it is not in anybody's interest. That is as much as I know. It is in nobody's interest to do that. It would be good to accept where you are, whether you have won or you have lost anything, and come to your senses. At least put the people, the poor people, in the name of which that all these things are happening at the end of the day. Okay, it is not about the elite; it's about the poor people.
Yes, Zelealem, I like your point there. Now, how do you see the solution in practice? How do you see it looking like in practice? I don't want us to go into, I'm not saying you're saying theory, but how do you see the solution in practice?
Well, the solution I see in practice, like I said, is whether we like it or not, it is no way perfect, or it hasn't got a big coverage either, but there is an interim administration made up of people of Tigray, nobody else. It is not from another region, okay? Let us accept and work with them. And then after that, yeah, they're interim, and you can think about how to constitute a permanent regional administration within Tigray. And I am sure they can put a call out to the people who were previously attached with the TPLF. You can come, as long as you can come and peacefully work with the interim government. I am sure they will accept them with both hands. That's what we need to be doing.
Yes, Zelealem, do you mean an interim government without the TPLF, or with an inclusive interim government? What do you mean?
Well, I don't know if there is any TPLF now, but if there are members of what used to be the TPLF, they can sort of come and talk to them, okay? Right?
Okay, let me get
find
Martin's
out
point.
find out the way forward. But in terms of access of information, I forgot something to mention. I understand that telecom services are probably in most part of the Tigray region today, even internet. So I've been told that they have managed to get information through the internet from Tigray. So I'm hoping that the days going ahead are better days than worse days in Tigray or in Ethiopia. Thank you.
Thank you for that update, Mr. Zelealem, and I hope that that is in practice correct. Since again, it's very difficult to verify. Maybe it is now easy to verify. Martin, let me talk to you. Please give us your last opinion on this. How do you see the solution in practice? Because mindful that Zelealem talks about an interim government. If that government is without the TPLF, as he says, maybe there isn't any TPLF anymore. I don't want to be a pessimist, but from a very realistic point of view, that poses a challenge.
It does, absolutely. But I mean, there's one thing that I must say is just nonsense. The idea that this war is in nobody's interest. It is in the interest of President Isaias, who has pushed it right from the beginning. Prime Minister Abiy knows that if he loses this war, he is personally finished. He has no future in Ethiopia. So it's in both of their interests to try and win this war. This war is a war that is now being fought on the battlefield. And until we see some outcome to that, I don't think either side is going to actually sit down at the negotiating table. Because at the end of the day, all wars end with negotiations. Now, there was, as I pointed out, President Ramaphosa's suggestion of having mediators come and mediate this. It was too soon, and sadly, they are now being sidelined. People like Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who had a great ability to try and resolve this. So I'm afraid I think we are not in the stage of reconciliation. We're not in the stage of peace building. We're in the stage of war, and we have to. There's no point in pretending we're anywhere else. Suffering, death, rape, murder, that's what we can look forward to. We cannot fool people and tell people that there's any hope at this stage, in my view, of having it. And the idea that you can just, that TPLF members who won 90% of an election just before this war broke out don't exist anymore. I mean, this is fantasy stuff. You have to sit down with the local leaders.
Come on, Martin. Okay, you should know better than that. Okay, the EPR won 99% of the seats.
Please don't talk over me. All we have to do is bring the parties together, and then there might be an opportunity. But at this stage, it's too soon.
Can I
thank you very much, Martin. Yeah, Mr. Joseph. Yes, let me round up, and you can. Go ahead, Mr. Joseph.
I think what we should do, we can add another 20 minutes to our discussion, so that
I'm afraid I can't.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I think we would round up.
Okay.
And
Right.
Mr. Zelealem, did you want to say something before I round up?
No. I just wanted to comment about what Martin said about the TPLF winning about 90%. I mean, we know far too well. Even EPRDF won 99% of the seats. Was that a popular government in Ethiopia? It's the most unpopular repressive regime. Okay, these are elections which are done under the gun. Okay, so please, that is not going to be a verifying fact how popular TPLF is. You should know sort of the history of the TPLF, how many of their own people that they have killed to come to power in 1991 and even after that. But we are accepting the status quo, right? They were given every opportunity of, yes, whether you have made right or wrong in that country, you have governed or ruled, whichever vocabulary you want to use. But you can now sort of take turns. Please accept like that somebody else who probably have got a better vision than you are, right, could lead that country. Let us give a chance. But they wouldn't have it. And that's why
Thank
we are
you.
here. So they need to come back to
Yes.
their own sense.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank
David,
you.
before you round up, I just want to have just a simple comment. You know, for me, I see things in a very, very simplistic way. To me, it looks like the TPLF, the Ethiopian government forces, they want to prove a point. Everyone wants to win an argument without thinking that in the course of doing so, lives are being lost, and I don't know what is even the point of wanting actually to be in power so much instead of putting human life in front. Zelealem, do you think what I'm saying is that true? Just two sides actually trying to prove a point.
Yeah, Joseph, that is true, but the Ethiopian government is the federal government is an interim government. It's only 2.5 years old, led by Abiy Ahmed. It's not like Museveni's government of what 40 years or something like that. In my view, okay, we gave a chance for TPLF when they came to power. Okay, please give them a benefit of the doubt and let's see their records 10 years down the line. Nobody has started opposing the TPLF administration, right? Up until 2005 election in Ethiopia, where they have lost in most parts, but they have basically turned the West and the country against themselves, right? A chance could have been given here, but I think they've lost the plot on this one. So they need to come back their senses, but Ethiopia and Ethiopians will have to do everything in terms of bringing peace and stability in their country, but first and foremost about helping their people rehabilitate and stop starvation. Thank you.
Thank you, Zelealem. I think Martin wants to drop in a word. I didn't really want to drag this further, but Martin, let me allow you to do that. Go ahead.
Well, just one very brief point, which is that it's worthwhile pointing out that there were 1.2 million people internally displaced in Ethiopia before this war began. Had nothing to do with Tigray. So the record of the government stands on how they've treated their own people. That was what has actually been achieved by this government. And I think it's a tragedy, but I'm afraid the reality is, and I wish that it was not true, that I think that the current position is that the battlefield is where this will be sorted out at the moment. I hope that I'm wrong. I wish that there would be mediation. I wish that there'd be peace. And that is what I would long for. But, we can't live in a world of illusions.
Thank you, Martin Plaut, former BBC World editor and researcher. Thank you very much. Zelealem Tessema, chair of the Ethiopian people in the UK. Hopefully I got that right. If not, perhaps, we'll correct that later on. We missed also Professor Mammo Muchie, who was with us, but unfortunately he couldn't continue because of technical issues. Mr. Joseph Otiani, thank you so much. Thank you for our viewers, for the questions that have been asked. Again, the end point is that there is an ongoing war in Ethiopia, and nobody wins this kind of war because this is a war between Ethiopians. We need a solution, and we need a solution very quickly. We hope that there will be reason for both sides to consider a mediated solution. We hope that the narratives of promoting one side or the other will be limited in supply so that a common ground can be found between the Ethiopians or the Ethiopian government and the people from the Tigray region. Now, I think this is something that needs to be resolved within the spectrum of the African Union. It needs to be resolved within the spectrum of the Ethiopian government. And we do hope that a solution is going to come very soon. And we promise to bring you back updates. We promise to bring you back panelists to talk about the development of these issues. Perhaps, next time we'll be talking about the peace process rather than the existing war that is ongoing at the moment. So thank you very much again, viewers, and over to you, Mr. Joseph.
Yes. Thank you. So, as you have heard, viewers, and I must thank you for all the comments that you have sent to our panelists. And we are actually, I am really pleased to see the debate. This is a mature debate. That is how we want to see discussing difficult issues. Someone might disagree with one another, but it does not mean that they are enemies. We Africans, we have got one problem. When we disagree, then someone becomes an enemy, but we are trying to illustrate that there is a way of discussing these difficult issues without creating enmities. So next time we are going, I'm sure we will persuade these gentlemen because they have got so much more to say. I'm sure we will persuade them to come again and talk to us and give us more, maybe try to find a solution. For me, I'm about solution. My heart is actually bleeding when I see issues that are going on in the Republic of Congo. I see situation going on in Cameroon. I see situation going on in Uganda. It is like, where are we going? Or maybe independence is not all that enough after 60 years. We might have to talk about that. So, panelists, thank you very much. Until next time, probably next week, we're going to do it again. Thank you.
Au revoir. Thank you, Joseph.